My name is. Welcome to the April Bird Study Group meeting. My name is Jackson Hudecki, and I'm the Bird Study Group Director for the Hamilton Naturalist Club. Thrilled to have you all with us tonight. Thank you so much for being here. I was thinking that we would have fewer people tonight because of what's happening in the birding world, but it's also raining outside. I know I can hear plenty of birds from my window here in the west end of Hamilton. So perhaps people are still out birding, but those who are here tonight, thank you so much for joining us. Happy to have you here. I usually kick off with the land acknowledgement, and I hear the term land back a lot, and I was poking around landback.org the other day, and if you've been hearing that term land back a little bit, I thought I'd show you this. The reclamation of everything stolen from the original peoples: land, language, ceremony, food, education, housing, healthcare, governance, medicine, and kinship. Landback.org. And it's something that I know that we hear a lot around here from Indigenous people of this area, and definitely something to look a little bit further into as we discuss more and more of our and the original people of this region. And so we know that the city of Hamilton is home to many Indigenous people from across Turtle Island. And we are connected specifically to the Haudenosaunee, the Huron-Wendat, the Anishinaabe, and it's important for us to, especially when we talk about Earth Day and we talk about, connecting more to our land, to ensure that we're connecting with our Indigenous neighbors and the Indigenous neighbors, the original people of this land. And so I know tonight we're going to hear a little bit more about that and hear a little bit more about this Earth, and hopefully you've been exploring and connecting with Earth in the last couple of weeks. If you haven't been to a bird study group meeting, we are remaining virtual. Although I should have changed this slide, and I'll tell you why in a little bit. But if this is your first time joining us tonight, welcome. Feel free to introduce yourself in the chat or let us know where you're tuning in from. I usually start off with a couple of announcements before welcoming our special guests, who then have the floor for anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour. Ask any question you want tonight in the chat or in the Q&A. Always welcome that discussion. The goal of the Bird Study Group, this is, again, 35 years that the Bird Study Group has been meeting. The Hamilton Naturalist Club is 103 years old. But we want to just try and bring birders, whether you're a beginner, whether you're intermediate or an expert, bring people together to amplify all the voices of the people in the community, because we know how important it is to be not only connecting with each other, but connecting with this Earth, especially as we're watching very significant changes happen to it on a regular basis. And it's a vast community. The people in the community, the organizations in the community, and the living things around here. We are all connected. So it's great to have you here so that we can continue the conversation, because there's so much to talk about. A few birds and I were kind of surmising that we're at the start of peak migration. Like yesterday and today, the peak starts now and it goes up. There have been plenty of birds that have been showing up here since our last meeting in March, when we had the Bird Friendly Cities group give us their presentation. And I've listed several here on the side. But whenever the warblers start coming back is always a big deal. So people have been spotting palm warbler, yellow warbler in the last couple of days, myrtle warblers aplenty. I saw like 25 today at Princess Point. Pine warbler, black and white. The Forster's turns. It was one turn for a little bit, turned to two, but sharing time between Princess Point and Carroll's Bay. That was exciting. A little gull reported a month ago, and then again today in Oakville. Shorebirds are starting to show up. Willet was quite popular at the Burlington Lift Bridge for a while there, which was great early and awesome to see. Got a lot of people out to it. A Western Grebe made some waves, made a splash, hanging out around Lake Ontario, as well as a king eider, a red-throated loon, and harlequin ducks. If you did not get a chance to go outside today, it's all right. I'm sure you felt it, because I know that some friends who weren't able to get out of the office were kind of kicking themselves a little bit, but there were hundreds of broadwing hawks reported over Hamilton today. A friend suggested that he counted over 800 of them between 9:30 and 2. I saw several hundred over Dundas. Incredible. American bittern have been showing up, which is great. A white-eyed vireo seen today. Summer tanager, I think, seen kind of accidentally. Someone reported it on Discord around Valens, I think. They weren't quite sure what it was, and it was posted on the Aunt Birds Facebook page. So what are you seeing? What has been exciting to you in the last month, in the last couple of days, as we step into migration? And a friend, Heather Hostin, nabbed this cool shot of a brown thrasher. Now, it's not often you get that close to a brown thrasher, so I should disclose that this was taken at a banding station. But brown thrasher are around. So, yeah, and check out, first of all, its eye looks like one of those Easter Bunny chocolates from the days of yore, with like that yellow eye. But look at those whiskers. What a cool looking bird. So what are you seeing? Let us know. If you're in the area and you're looking to and wanting to give back, there are a couple ways of doing so. Your hand was just below that frame. Liam, you were there. You were at that banding station. Amazing. And Kelly Sue almost saw a snowy egret today. Yes, I should have included that. Snowy egret was that Windermere base. Incredible. So whenever I chat with biologists in the area, the theme of giving back is a huge thing. And if you haven't taken part in a litter pick this year yet, now is a great time. The snow's gone. Get out there and help beautify from all the crap that people leave behind. Invasive species removals are you're going to see more volunteer opportunities there. So if you're a naturalist in the community, be great to see you out at an invasive species planting. But putting your expertise to great use at a bio blitz would be massive. So there are a few opportunities to assist the Hamilton Naturalist Club, Jen Baker and Brittany Killingbeck, with some BioBlitz assistance. May 7th, May 25th, May 28th, June 8th, June 18th, and June 13th are the dates of a few BioBlitzes in the HNC properties, and several of them are circled here. Some are kind of far away, Spooky Hollow, and some are kind of close by, like the Sheila Dundooley Nature Sanctuary. Hoping that folks can come out and help document the biodiversity that is around here. One of the best ways that we can be communicating with governing bodies is by showcasing the life that's around here, and what better way to showcase it than having those who know about it talk about it. So if you're able to contribute and want to come out to some of these BioBlitzes and just walk around, hang out at, listen, you name it, we love your expertise at any of these BioBlitzes in the next little bit. You can reach out to me or to Jen if you want to contribute, but you'll be seeing more about this. Follow us on our social media channels. I was also sent this from Chris Motherwell, the City Nature Challenge, April 29th to May 2nd. I'm just going to go back here. I didn't think they overlapped here. So this is something different. Started in 2016 as a competition between San Francisco and Los Angeles, the City Nature Challenge has grown into an international event motivating people around the world to find and document wildlife in their cities, run by the community science teams of the California Academy of Sciences, Natural History Museum in Los Angeles. A 4-day global BioBlitz, end of April, where cities are in are in a collaboration meets friendly competition to see not only what can be accomplished when we all work towards a common goal, but also which city can gather the most observations of nature, find the most species, and engage the most people in the event. So, again, you know something about birds, about herps, about odes and leps, about moss, about fungi. Between April 29th and May 2nd, submit your sightings to iNaturalist, but there's probably a specific project. So iNaturalist.org, project City Nature Challenge 22, look it up, and your sightings will go into that. That'd be awesome. Volunteers will also be needed, and I did hear that the Falcon Watch will be looking for a staff member. So there should be a post coming up shortly about a Falcon Watch coordinator. But the two peregrine falcons on the Sheraton Hotel in downtown Hamilton are on. This was the latest update given to us by Charles Gregory on the 17th. I think there was an update from the other day that mentioned there was something unusual. A bird got very protective. One of the falcons got very protective of something flying by. But Judson and McKeever are definitely sitting on eggs right now. And so when the babes hatch and start to fledge, we'll need folks kicking around, so that way we're monitoring what's happening with those birds. So we'd love to have some volunteers out for this. You can check out more on falcons.hamiltonnature.org or email Charles himself, falcons@charlesgregory.ca. Ways that we can give back. It'd be awesome to have your support. A vast birding community in the region. We learned all about that. I'm sure someone atlased that, Liam. I wonder whose square that is. The urban core, downtown Hamilton. We learned all about the birding community from Barry Coombs last month with the Bird Friendly Cities team. But there's lots of little groups and there's lots of big groups in the region. So if you want to get connected, definitely ways of doing so. But social media is a great start. And give Rob Porter's Songbirding podcast a listen. I've been also listening to the Warblers podcast recently, and there was a great episode on bird-friendly cities. And it is an election year, so maybe we can talk to the province or talk to representatives about what they're doing to ensure that their municipalities and in this province is for nature, because we know that a lot of times there's some bad stuff that happens. So I won't go further than that. We'd love to have you as a member of the Hamilton Naturalist Club. You get a fancy copy of the Wood Duck. I'm looking for Wood Duck contributors even. If you are someone who writes, if you are someone who takes photographs, this is a great avenue to be able to share your work or your thoughts or your efforts, is the Wood Duck. So reach out to us if you want to contribute to that. Volunteer at hamiltonnature.org if you want to help volunteer. You can always reach out to me, Bird Study Group at hamiltonnature.org. Or to Lou Mitten at programs@hamiltonnature.org, because we're going to be planning all of next year's talks and webinars and lectures and panels or whatever we're going to do. And I say whatever because we're at the very end of our scheduled programming. So we always end in either April or May, because things get hot and heavy in the nature world. And people are out in the field, and why sit in a webinar? Why go to a meeting when you can be out, because the sun doesn't set until later? So we're having our first hybrid meeting on Monday, May 9th. It's going to be at RBG, but it'll also be online. So COVID is worse than it's ever been. So we want to kind of take that into consideration, but we also want to give people a chance to connect. So there's going to be two ways of doing that. One is at this general meeting where we're going to be learning about building conservation networks. And this is going to be a great talk. You're going to see a little bit more about this, but it will be hosted at Royal Botanical Gardens on the borders of Hamilton and Burlington. So that's one thing. And on the following week, Monday, May 16th, I'm looking to do a birders kind of meet and greet, an outdoor meeting, which would probably only last like 10 or 15 minutes at the Arboretum. And it's a bunch of it's TBD still, because I need to work out some stuff, but it would give folks a chance to just go walk around or to go sit in the arboretum, to go take a hike, to go bird, whatever. So keep this in mind. I'm going to be talking a little bit more about this closer to the date. Again, I need to firm up some details, but that would be our last meeting before we take a break, before resuming again in September. And what that will look like, we're not sure. Are we going to be in person only? Is it going to be hybrid? Are we going to be virtual? Your guess is as good as mine, but we'll keep everything going forward. And with that said, I'll stop talking after I introduce our special guests from the Feminist Bird Club. So Jessica Brousseau and Elisabeth Shapiro will be our special guests tonight. I'm handing the camera over to them in a second. Jessica is an able-bodied, white, queer, cis woman currently living as an uninvited guest in Hamilton. In 2017, Jessica started following the Feminist Bird Club when a friend shared the group with her and has been involved with the Toronto chapter since 2019. In 2021, Jessica joined the leadership team as part of the Intersectional Committee. Outside of the FBC, Jessica is also a member of the Ontario Field Ornithologist EDI Committee and a counselor for the Toronto Ornithological Club. When not birding with her dog, Jessica works with Fresh Restaurants, a family of plant-based restaurants with a focus on sustainability and anti-oppression. And Elisabeth is a wildlife biologist whose work focuses on the conservation of invertebrate species. In 2019, she joined the Feminist Bird Club Toronto chapter, and in 2021 became a member of the leadership team. As a member of the Events and Education Committee, she hosts virtual and in-person events and develops community partnerships. In her spare time, she can be found looking for birds and bugs in Toronto parks. She's passionate about connecting people and nature and building community, and that's why they're here tonight. So thank you, Jessica and Elisabeth, for being here tonight. Looking forward to learning all about the Feminist Bird Club. Everyone, let's put our hands together for Jessica and Elisabeth. Over to you.
Thank you for that lovely introduction, Jackson. I'm just gonna pull up our slides and then we'll get rolling. All right, can we all see that?
We're good.
We're good, amazing. All right, so I know Jackson already gave a really great land acknowledgement, but given that our club is based in Toronto and that my body is also in Toronto right now, I'd like to give an additional one for Toronto. So as a settler in Toronto, I acknowledge that I am situated upon the traditional territories of the Wendat, Haudenosaunee, Anishinaabe, and the Mississaugas of the Credit. For over 10,000 years, Indigenous peoples have lived in this area, and I recognize the enduring presence of Indigenous peoples on this land. Tikaronto is located within the Dish with One Spoon territory. The Dish with One Spoon is a wampum belt covenant between the Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, and Mississaugas to share and protect this land together by using only one spoon to eat from the dish and ensuring the dish is never empty. As we're meeting virtually, I encourage everyone here to take the time to learn about the traditional territories upon which you live, work, or study, and to acknowledge the colonial systems of oppression and that have dispossessed Indigenous peoples of their land and denied their right to self-determination. We must all play an active role in decolonization. Understanding the history of how you came to live on the land and your place within that history is an important step towards doing so. So as a naturalist club, one small but important action that can be taken is to learn the traditional names of the territories we bird within and the names of the plants and animals that we spend time with. So as you can see here, this map is of Southern Ontario, especially the GTA, and it's from nativeland.ca, which is a really great resource, which allows you to learn about the nations, treaties, and languages of a particular geographical region. So I encourage folks to take the time to seek out that information. And now I'm going to pass things over to Jessica, who's going to do the first half of our presentation.
Thank you, Elisabeth. Go to our next slide. An invitation to brave spaces. Together we can create brave spaces because there's no such thing as a safe space. We exist in the real world. We all carry scars and we have all caused wounds. In this space, we seek to turn down the volume of the outside world. We amplify voices that fight to be heard elsewhere. We call each other to more truth and love. We have the right to start somewhere and to continue to grow. We have the responsibility to examine what we think we know. We will not be perfect. We will not always be what we wish to be, but we will be our brave space together, and we will work on it side by side. While we are all meeting virtually, it is important to remember that we are coming from different lived experiences. Some topics we touch on today might bring up different feelings. I encourage everyone to honor those feelings and take space when needed. The Feminist Bird Club has this understanding, and like our events, we hold this space as an accountable and brave space where we strive to gain understanding and empathy to build a stronger community. We understand that not everyone is coming here with the same knowledge base, and some things might seem unfamiliar with what we're talking about. So before we venture in to what we do or who we are, I'd like to define some commonly used terms that are in our principles. So intersectionality, this is Kimberly Crenshaw. I encourage everyone to look her up and listen to her TED Talks. Intersectionality was developed by Kimberly Crenshaw in the 80s. She first used this term to describe in a discussion regarding a lawsuit in a lawsuit regarding a Black woman who was experiencing discrimination at work. When the judge ruled on this, he based his decision on laws only regarding gender. When Crenshaw looked at this case, she said that the experience was beyond that, and there wasn't language to describe what the woman was experiencing. She also often uses the example of voting. When Black people were granted the right to vote, it meant Black men. And when women were given the right to vote, it meant white women. So where did that leave Black women? She describes intersectionality as a prism in which inequality, disadvantage compound to create different barriers. We use this theory within the club to challenge outdated forms of feminism that center able-bodied white cis women. And the framework ensures that we are discussing inclusion and that we are listening and centering voices of those who don't have the same privilege, access, or platforms. Next slide. Pronouns. When you come to our outings, our introductions will always include a pronouns go around. Not everyone is familiar with what pronouns they use. Pronouns, for example, would be he, she, or they. So during our introductions, we do the pronouns go around. This is part of creating an inclusive space. We want to expect and celebrate gender diverse members. We want to normalize stating our own pronouns and asking people what their pronouns are in an effort to allow people to be their authentic selves. And people are free to, like, if any of these things feel unfamiliar and you want some more information, feel free to drop some questions in and we're happy to answer. This slide also comes from the 519, which has an entire workshop regarding gender and pronouns and how to use gender neutral pronouns. Another great resource is a book called An Introduction to They and Them Pronouns for folks who use non-binary pronouns. Next slide. Thank you. Neurodiverse is a term coined by autistic scholar Judith Singer. It is used to describe folks with cognitive processing that diverges significantly from dominant societal standards of normal. This term is often used within autistic communities, but is an umbrella term for many. Some examples. Oh, I skipped the wrong page. Sorry. As the neurodivergent walrus here explains, neurodivergence can include many people. We approach our work knowing that everyone comes with a different way of learning and understanding. All of these slides, and I was also really grateful to have a workshop recently with Goodfoot in Toronto, and these slides come from neurodivergentlibrary.org if anybody wants some more information on how to be a better ally. LGBTQIA 2S. So this is an acronym used to describe different gender and sexual orientations. I think most people are familiar with a lot of them, but we thought we would define a few that might be new to folks. So two-spirited is an Indigenous term for those who possess both masculine and feminine spirit. This is used in many communities in various ways, and like so many terms, it is unique to the individual and the community. Intersexed. Intersexed is defined as individuals who are born with several sex characteristics, including chromosome patterns, gonads, or genitals. Many people don't even actually know they are intersex until they have genetic testing. Asexual is used to describe anyone who does not experience sexual attraction towards any individual or gender, so it is without a sexual orientation. The plus. So this can include pansexual, demisexual, agendered, or non-binary. With all these terms, gender and sexuality are complex, fluid, and ever-evolving. Having the language to self-identify means having access to education and community that helps you explore these things. The emphasis should always be on allowing the individual to self-identify, to listen when given the opportunity to learn. Sorry, ableism. So this is any type of discrimination, prejudice, or exclusion of those with disabilities, whether visible or invisible. It can take many forms, including language or physical spaces. Some examples within birding, I know for myself, I have been trying to unlearn saying, did you see that bird or did you hear that bird? And putting an emphasis on experience because everyone experiences birds differently. When we are organizing for the Feminist Bird Club, which Elisabeth will expand on more, we strive to give folks as much information as possible regarding accessibility and take various needs into account when we do our planning. This map is from Birdability. You can view birdability.com. They are creating a map of the world where you can have various hotspots and click on them to see their different accessibility needs, or it shows like terrain, washrooms, and things like that for folks. Part of the FBC's commitment to growing an inclusive bird community is that each chapter is asked to contribute to this map yearly. Next one. So the Feminist Bird Club was founded, am I missing? I'll read this one next, sorry. So the goal of the Feminist Bird Club is to make birding and outdoor inclusive and affirming to people who may not have safe access to it, and to leverage a passion for the environment and social justice to help create lasting social change. More simply put, there's no reason why we can't celebrate birds and support our most cherished beliefs in equity and justice at the same time. For us, it's not an either or. We can go to the next slide. So a little history on the Feminist Bird Club. The Feminist Bird Club was founded in 2016 by Molly Adams and has grown to over 20 chapters across the world. Some of the chapters include New York, which is the main and first chapter, Boston, Chicago, Toronto, Seattle, Netherlands, Madison, Wisconsin, San Francisco, Buffalo, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Los Angeles, Salt Lake City, Portland, Houston, and as well, my favorite, the Anti-Racist Collective of Avid Birders, also ACAB, the Western Massachusetts chapter. Some of the sibling clubs include a chapter in Argentina, a chapter in Mexico City, and then we also have one in the Netherlands. Next one. So the Toronto chapter was founded by Mary Guyton and Susan Isaac. So in early 2021, we had our, oh, I'm sorry, I'm reading this so bad. So in 2021, we also expanded our leadership team to have multiple people to help organize events and things like that. Our leadership team is always looking for more volunteers, and we are happy to have anybody reach out and join. Our events, we have now grown to have over 40 participants. Many of them are new birders. Elisabeth is going to touch a little bit more on our outings and things that we offer. And I'm going to go over the principles of the Feminist Bird Club. So the principles of the Feminist Bird Club. Our Feminism must focus on addressing intersectional struggles. Our work must center the experience of and fight for the rights of people who identify as Indigenous, trans, non-binary, queer, women, disabled, Black, brown, neurodiverse, or any combination thereof, and the equity of people from all socioeconomic backgrounds. All chapters need to work against perpetuating white feminism and any extension of misogyny. Our fight for conservation and environmental justice is intimately connected with the feminist and anti-racist movement. Our members must respect that these international struggles are central to our fight to address the climate crisis. At events, everyone must be respectful of one another. This includes being considerate of new birders, acknowledging an individual's pronouns, and rejecting any racist, sexist, ableist, classist, homophobic, sexist, or xenophobic behaviors. All flora and fauna encountered at events must be treated with respect, and participation in the local conservation actions are always encouraged. The ABA Birding Code of Conduct must be followed by all members at all events. Elisabeth, it is up to you.
All right, now I will take over. Thanks, Jess, for providing that great overview of the history of our club and some key terms that we'll be talking about throughout. So I'm going to be talking about the events, education, and outreach work that we've been doing as a club, as well as some new projects that we're really excited to advance as an organization. So first off, the Feminist Bird Club is 100% free. We don't have annual memberships, and our events are always free to attend. So as you can imagine, as a birding club, we offer birding outings and birding walks. These offerings have been somewhat sporadic due to COVID, but we typically offer monthly birding walks for our club's members. There are a number of considerations that go into the selection of locations for these walks. All of our events, we'd like them to be accessible on public transit, and the routes that we plan are planned with accessibility in mind. So this means considering the distance that people have to travel once they've arrived at the park, the type of walking service, whether there's rough or difficult terrain to navigate, if there's public washrooms and water fountains available for use. Since we strive to make our walks really inclusive, we typically provide a description of the site ahead of the event so that people can make an informed choice as to whether a walk is suitable for them and their abilities. Once on site, as Jessica mentioned, we like to start all of our events by offering a land acknowledgement, and then we encourage people to introduce themselves and share their pronouns. We seek to, at our events, create accountable spaces. So accountable spaces are guidelines developed by Elisa Hemkora, which encourage people to behave equitably and inclusively, to take responsibility for oneself, as well as your intention, words, and actions, and to enter into a space with good intentions. So while birding, we also seek to foster a collaborative, non-hierarchical approach to identifying birds and recognize that we can all lead from one another. So the people who guide our walks are there to help facilitate and kind of keep people on time, on schedule. But we really like to foster that collaboration and learn from one another at these events. So as you can imagine, COVID has impacted our ability to offer in-person events, and much like your club, in response to this, we have offered several online events. We've hosted casual meet and tweets where people can just hang out and chat and get to meet one another, as well as bird-themed knitting nights. This year, we also started a bi-monthly book club called the Page Turners, in which participants read the book of their choice related to nature, birding, or social justice. We also hosted a virtual zine and craft night to create a zine about ethical birding. So in case you haven't heard of them before, zines are small self-published magazines that are typically created by an individual or a group of people, and they're designed to be produced and printed at low cost. So my next slide, I have some pictures from the zine. So this zine about ethical birding focuses on ways to engage bystanders in order to create a community that respects both birds and people. So the impetus for this was a sexual assault case within the birding community in the US, as well as many cases of owl harassment that resulted in the death of birds. So the content of the zine was developed collaboratively during a virtual workshop where we discussed these issues and how we'd like to frame this information in zine form. Once the text was finalized, a public call for illustrations was put out, and we received a number of wonderful submissions. These are just a few of them. And this zine will be available to read shortly, and I think we'll be handing it out if all goes well at some events this May. So as Jessica already mentioned, we seek to be a really welcoming and inclusive club for people of all gender identities, sexual orientations, races, abilities, and ages. In addition to providing free events, we also develop and share free resources on social media and all other formats, sometimes in person at events, to make it easier for new birders to get into the hobby. So as I'm sure many of you may remember from when you started out as birders, birding can be so overwhelming when you're just starting out. And as we've talked to people at events, we've learned that a lot of people are out birding for the first time or are really new to the hobby. So we like to create resources for people that can help demystify birding. So this on screen is one of our newer resources, which is a guide to some female Toronto birds that we'll be using at an event with the Toronto Bird Celebration later this spring. I'll talk more about that event later. So as I said, many of our resources are posted on social media. So we have a Facebook and Instagram page. So we hope that that provides people with free and easy access to these resources. So these are just a couple of examples from the last year. The first shows people tips for identifying key features of birds to help them identify or describe them to other people. And then we also developed a guide, which you can see on the right, to confusing birder slang. So using birding shorthand such as foy, lifer, twitching, dipping can be really fun when you're in the know, but really alienating and confusing when you're new to the hobby. So we hope that these types of resources can remove some of the barriers to entry for new birders and make it a more equitable hobby that more people can enjoy. All right, so now on to fundraising. So fundraising is a key pillar of the Feminist Bird Club. Our fundraising focuses on social justice oriented charities within our community. This is because, as we already went over in our mission statement, the fight for the environment and conservation is inextricably linked, is inextricably connected to anti-racism and feminism. And we must support diverse communities so that they can be involved in the environmental justice movement. So our annual patch sales have taken place amongst all chapters. They're coordinated, I think, by the Central New York chapter each year. And since starting a few years back, they've raised over $60,000 just through the sales of these patches, which is really incredible. Last year, the 2021 patch raised $10,000 for the Native Wellness Center, as well as $5,000 for abortion funds. So just a huge amount being raised through that initiative. And this year's patch features a beautiful female belted kingfisher, and those will be available for sale soon. Last December, we hosted an online fundraiser auction or raffle of bird-themed art, items, and experiences. And through this fundraiser, we raised almost $1,000 for Ojibwe, which is an Indigenous cultural network in Toronto that provides youth and land-based programming. And then another fundraiser we had was in 2020, and this was in response to ongoing racial violence and police brutality across North America. So in response to this, we hosted a birdathon for racial justice to raise money for the Black Legal Action Center. And this is a nonprofit community legal clinic that provides free legal services to low or no income Black residents of Ontario. And we were able to raise over $28,000 during just a few weeks in June of 2020, which was really incredible to see the community come together like that to support this initiative. So next off, I'd like to talk about some of our new initiatives. So that was a bit of an overview of some of our club's activities to date. So our club has grown a lot in the last year, as a lot of people have been finding new ways to connect with the outdoors and new hobbies that they can enjoy outdoors safely. And we've experienced this really incredible growth, but we've been continuing to question how we can continue to support this growth while still honoring our club's founding principles. So we really want to center diverse voices in our events and engage directly with local communities in Toronto that haven't historically had the opportunity to safely access and enjoy the outdoors. However, we're not a charitable organization, we have no operating budget, and we're really conscious of asking too much of our community without being able to provide compensation. But luckily for us, as we were having these conversations, the Toronto Ornithological Club announced their inaugural grant program. So we really were so excited to apply, and then in January found out that we were selected as a grant recipient. So under this new grant, there are 3 key components. The first is to create a binocular lending library for events. So we really hope to enhance walk participant experience by providing binoculars on loan. The cost associated with binoculars can be a real barrier to access for new birders, and it's hard to want to invest in a hobby that you're not sure if you're going to love. And many people also don't have the resources to make that investment. More than a third of our recent walk participants are new to birding, and as such, most of them don't have binoculars. But having guaranteed access to binoculars at events through our loaning library might help people feel more comfortable attending events and will improve their birding experience. So pretty soon, we're in the process of purchasing them right now, but we're going to have 8 pairs of binoculars for people to use at our events. The second pillar of this grant is developing community partnerships. So we're going to be partnering with local community centers and organizations to offer free birding walks in parts of the city that haven't historically had the opportunity to safely access and enjoy the outdoors, and in areas of the city that have large populations of people who have newly arrived in Canada. So this grant will allow us to offer free events to these communities without putting additional strain on the resources that they have. We're going to be able to cover transportation costs and provide snacks for walk participants as well. We piloted this program in the fall with St. Jamestown Community Corner in downtown Toronto, and we're really excited to add a few new groups on to the program this spring and summer. And finally, we are going to be offering honorariums for our monthly walk leaders. So we would like to have some walks led by experts in conservation, Indigenous land stewardship, and the history of Toronto's land management, and other specialized topics that tie into the space that we occupy in Toronto, as well as birding and nature and social justice. But we recognize that it takes many years to develop this expertise, and that a lot of people can't afford to volunteer their skills and knowledge for free. So we're going to be able to offer walk leaders honorariums, and we hope that this also allows us to prioritize walk leaders with lived experiences that are underrepresented in a lot of naturalist communities, such as individuals from racialized backgrounds and the LGBTQIA2S+ community. So we really hope that we'll be able to provide people with a platform through this. Overall, I'm really excited about this grant that the TOC has generously provided us with, and we hope that administering it will allow us to promote inclusivity and diversity in birding, and that it will help to address some of the barriers to engaging with birds and natures and the outdoors that certain groups have experienced. So now I'm gonna put a little plug out there for some of our upcoming events. This Wednesday, we are having a socially distanced woodcock watch at Tommy Thompson Park. We're gonna be meeting by the marina at 8 p.m. and hope to see some wonderful mating displays. Tuesday, May 10th is the 3rd meeting of the Page Turner's Book Club. This month, we are all reading memoirs or biographies of people involved in the social justice movement or naturalists. May 14th and 15th, we're going to be at a native planting event with the Toronto Region Conservation Authority, again at Tommy Thompson Park, where we're going to be talking about how native planting can support our birds and our ecosystems, and provide some resources there. May 18th, we have another online event for the Toronto Bird Celebration with a group from the US called the Galbatross. So that'll be a really fun panel discussion. And May 29th, we are leading a female bird walk at Humber Bay Shores. And that's where we will be debuting that female bird guide I showed earlier on in the presentation. So with that, I invite everyone here to come birding with us. We'd love to have you. If you would like to read more about our organization, you can visit feministbirdclub.org. If you navigate at that website to the Toronto chapter, we have a link where you can sign up to join our bi-monthly newsletter. And then we're also on Facebook, Instagram, and you can reach us on Gmail as well. And finally, one last slide. We just wanted to share some great resources. Jess, did you want to talk about these? I know you put together.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay.
So just some other resources of representation in birding and outdoors. Brown Girl Outdoor World is a Toronto-based organization doing outings focused on the Black community. Flock Together, another great birding organization. There is a Toronto chapter that is not as active, but it's cool. Birdability, which we spoke about, and Black AF in STEM, which is the organizers of Black Birders Week, and some other resources, podcasts that are enjoyable, Always Be Birding, The Secret Life of Canada, Code Switch, Ologies has like a lot of great resources, and Wildlife Observer Network are some great podcasts. And then books that I encourage folks to read or listen to. These are all available in audiobooks as well. Braiding Sweetgrass by Dr. Robin Wall-Kimmer, As Long as the Grass Grows, and Fresh Banana Leaves, which was a hit at the last page turners. Everyone was reading it. The audiobook isn't, I don't think, available quite yet, but will be in the next month. So yeah, just some additional resources outside of the Feminist Bird Club to explore.
I can vouch for Fresh Banana Leaves. It was a great read about Indigenous conservation and the need to incorporate that into Western conservation. But yeah, we can circulate these resources as well as our contact information to Jackson if there are people who would like to get access to that. And with that, I will stop sharing my screen, but Jessica and I are more than happy to take anyone's questions.
Amazing. That's awesome. Thank you both, Jessica and Elisabeth. Incredible to learn about this. And I have some questions, and there is a question in the chat, so I'll encourage folks to use this opportunity to ask any question you may have or share a comment with Jessica and Elisabeth. I know that hanging with family over Easter, I had a discussion with a family member about pronouns and about, they, them, and why people, prefer that over he, she, and how it's confusing. But it was cool to kind of be in a conversation where someone was sharing that, because they don't have many people in their lives yet that have been open, but they're finding that there is more of that conversation happening, and they wanted just to talk about it in a comfortable setting. And so do you find that there are people in your circles, or do you have any other, maybe you could put it in the chat, any websites where there are further readings that folks can do about pronouns that anyone can read up on should they want to learn more?
Let me pull my favorite book up right now. It's a comic book that I recommend to everybody.
Jessica has a wealth of amazing resources on this topic. I recently went to her to ask for some resources to share with some folks in my life, and she, within 20 minutes, got back to me with a list of, I swear, 25 different resources. It was incredible. Just has them at her fingertips.
I'm going to drop them in the chat. We also have, there's a great website that's kind of like a game where you can select whatever pronoun you'd like, and then it'll teach you to use them in different sentences. I think lots of folks feel insecure when or feel unsure when they're hearing they, them pronouns. But often if you don't know a person's pronouns, like if say somebody, I'll use the example of somebody left their scope or their tripod somewhere, you wouldn't automatically say he or she. You would say someone left their scope, right? So we're already using those things, but we just aren't sure how to use it when we see somebody and then we're already projecting our biases on them or things that we think we know. And that's the emphasis of allowing people to like state their pronouns or to have pronouns as an option in like say your email or your name tags or any type of sign off. I'm just gonna throw this. This is an link. I'm sorry, it's just the quickest thing that comes up. This is a great thing. It's like $9. It's a comic book. I find it very accessible in the language it uses and different ways to like explain it. But yeah, I'm always here for these conversations.
And as people practice more, it's really a very easy thing to do and becomes second nature very quickly. So a lot of people are really worried about making mistakes also, I think. And I think it's important that if you do misgender someone, that you, and you're corrected, if someone is there to correct you, that you thank them for correcting you, apologize, and then move on and make a mental note not to do it again and not to center yourself in it and to make it about your guilt and your apology. So I think that's another important piece to take away.
Yeah, and that's kind of the chat that I was having with someone today was, you know, I think the purpose of creating an inclusive community allows there to be more folks willing to come out to walks and to talks and to events, because the earth needs more people protecting it and observing it. Like it is a little bit like a war happening out there, where there are people who just don't care about the planet and are doing whatever they want to it. And then there are folks who are saying, you can't do that. You know, we need to be sure that we're keeping as much biodiversity and as many ecosystems intact as possible. And in order to do that, we need a lot of people surrounding us, and we want to make sure that those who want to jump in and to help are welcome to that world. And that's a major extreme side of it. The enjoying nature side of it is, of course, the most beautiful part of it. And we want to make sure that everyone is safe to do so in whatever capacity that they can give, whether it's just birding or standing at a protest or at a standing in solidarity. So my question, and Kelly Sue kind of asked this in the Q&A, you know, are there talks of Feminist Bird Club expanding in Ontario? Are there more than one chapter in Ontario? Can you talk a little bit about the club growth?
So right now you can just apply, like if you're interested in starting a club, there is like an entire counselor on the main Feminist Bird Club dedicated to starting new chapters and stuff like that. I know that we have had a lot of people reach out, and as I am based in Hamilton, we're hoping to like work on some, because we're so close, hoping to work on some more engagement like outside of Toronto as well, including some hopefully events in Hamilton. We even, like when we did the birdathon and stuff, we had folks participate from Hamilton, from Guelph, from BC, like all over. So yeah, there's always room for growth. But I don't know if any plans in the near future of a Hamilton one.
I'm wondering if there's room for any sort of partnerships, because I was trying to think about a question of like, how are we doing? How is Hamilton doing, you know, or is there chatter, is there communication about what Hamilton is like in the birding or naturalist community outside of Hamilton that maybe we don't know about? But maybe that might be too broad of a question to ask.
I mean, as someone who's based in Toronto, I am always hearing about all of the amazing birding opportunities in Hamilton and a lot of the grassroots community-led conservation projects and the city-led projects for pollinators, for birds, on all of that. So it's making it as far as Toronto from my experience. Yeah, I hear about a lot of great things coming out of there, and it always makes me jealous that I don't have a car and can't easily just get out there and join in some of those events.
Yeah, but you know, I was gonna say one day, but also, it sounds like there's also some great stuff chatting leading into this meeting, hearing about all the cool birds and seeing the cool opportunities that you're providing in Toronto. You're doing such great work there. It's all great things. There's an anonymous attendee question. Have there been challenges in getting people from equity deserving groups into leadership positions in the FBC?
Do you want to speak to this, Elizabeth? We just talked about this.
Yeah, we were
You're
just talking about this weekend, so I don't know if we have like a very polished response necessarily, but I think a lot of equity deserving groups have a less than pleasant history or association historically and to the present with the term feminism. And that can be a barrier for a lot of BIPOC community members from joining, is that there's this history of white feminism that hasn't been intersectional, and that can be a real barrier to participation. So I think that is a bit of a challenge. As well, everyone on the leadership board is a volunteer. We're not compensated for our time. We're involved because this is something we're really passionate about and that we'd like to work on. So it's hard to ask everyone to be able to volunteer their time to take on that additional labor outside of going to school or working a job or multiple jobs or childcare or caring for relatives. Like, not everyone has the bandwidth and ability. And that is something I think we'd really like to explore in the future, is finding ways that we can make those positions easier for people to be able to take on. So whether that's finding some additional funding to provide honorariums for membership positions on the leadership board in order to actively improve the diversity of people and experiences on our team, or whether there are some other mechanisms out there that we can work through. That's something we're actively exploring. I will say we're currently doing a membership survey, and some of the preliminary results we're getting through with demographics, it's been really great to see the wide age range of people. We've got people from 18 to I think 60 or 70 that have responded that they're participating. So we've got a lot of different lived experiences there. And more than 75% of the respondents so far do identify as being in the LGBTQIA community. So that's really great. Jessica, do you have anything to add? That was a bit of a ramble.
That's like our exact conversation. Yeah, we know that when we're talking about people who are deserving of space and stuff, that there are so many barriers, whether it be like socioeconomic, like you have to work multiple jobs, or just not feeling comfortable in spaces yet. Like, that's why in our principles, we're constantly striving to like undo these things and unlearn things within ourselves. So yeah, it has definitely been a challenge, and something that is always on our mind. As I think with like, I know from like working with TOC and OFO, like this is an ongoing thing in naturalist communities of like, how do we support and give a platform to more folks?
I mean, I've even heard that the term naturalist isn't quite inclusive, because if someone's thinking like, well, I like being outside, but I don't have a specialty. I don't have fungi or plants or birds as something that I gravitate towards. Am I welcomed in a naturalist community if I don't have if I don't know enough? And that could be daunting.
Yeah, there's so many things like that. Like even thinking of citizen science, and changing that to community science, because citizenship doesn't exist on stolen land and is and can be a barrier for a lot of people as well.
This might be a weird question, but what would you say to someone who says that you should keep politics out of birding?
I think that comes from a very privileged position. When we're talking about socioeconomics, when we're talking about racialized folks or queer folks, those aren't experiences that you can leave at the door. Those are things like visible minorities that you walk into a space with, and those biases are already, like, it's not politics to have something equitable. Like these are things that are denying people healthcare, access to basic needs. And I would also say, like, when we're talking about social justice and environmental justice, they're so linked. Like when we think about who's sounding the alarms, who's seeing these problems, it's marginalized communities who don't have a platform, who aren't listened to. It's like communities who are so like resource exploited because they're close to a dump, like because they're close to some type of toxic waste or things like that. Like we don't see the impact of that because nobody's listening to them because they don't have a platform. So I would say that it isn't political as much as like these things aren't something you can leave behind. I think that comes up so much.
Yeah.
I know Brown Girl Outdoor World talks a lot about this. Jacqueline Scott did a recent article for the Toronto Star talking about like unviewed ravines and being a Black person in nature and what that experience was. And a lot of people can't leave those experiences behind. So it's not political at all. It's just how people live. And if you feel like anti-oppression is a political thing, I think that comes from somebody who has less of a lived experience with that.
And I would just add to that, since you mentioned Jacqueline Scott and all of her amazing work, she recently, I think it came out last week, co-authored a report for Nature Canada that's about race and nature in the city and how to engage youth of color in nature-based activities, and kind of assessing community-based needs for Nature Canada in particular. But I started reading it the other day. I'm not all the way through yet, but it's a really great report with a lot of excellent recommendations in it that I think a lot of naturalist groups, outdoor groups, and really everyone who's at all involved in the outdoors should read and listen to the recommendations of.
And what was that again, sorry?
So this is through Nature Canada, Race and Nature in the City. And Jacqueline Scott, who's a PhD candidate at U of T, I think, is U of T, yeah, is
I think it's
the lead author on it, along with some other researchers.
Yeah, everyone needs to be following everything Jacqueline Scott does. She talks specifically about green spaces in different areas of the city and how there's just not as much green space in areas where people identify as racialized or new immigrants. And she does incredible work.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, I know that in Hamilton, through the Naturalist Club and Environment Hamilton, that there's the Trees Please program where folks can apply and get a free tree that they could be putting in their front or backyard. Because there's no bad time to plant a tree, get it in the ground and get it growing, get it up there. Rachel Irwin is putting that book in the chat. I believe this is the report for anyone who's looking. Thank you. That's the Nature Canada, Race and Nature in the City. Awesome. There was another, sorry?
Oh, I'm just saying amazing. Rachel was so quick and on it with that.
There's a couple more questions. Are there upcoming or previous events that have focused on getting youth involved in birding?
We have an event coming up in June that I think will have a large component for kids that is in development. It'll be at Downsview Park in late June. Details TBD, but I think there will be bird-themed crafts involved.
We're saving all our toilet paper rolls.
Yeah, going to be making little binoculars and bird crafts and things. And that's something I'm exploring as well with our community partnerships, is finding some community groups that are youth-led or youth-oriented to work with as well. A lot of the ones I'm in discussion with have a lot of adult programming, but openly looking for youth opportunities.
Not quite in Toronto, but we run something called the Junior Naturalist Club out of the Royal Botanical Gardens and in partnership with the Hamilton Naturalist Club. And RBG also runs something called the Young Environmental Science Alliance, and that's a youth-based program. So there's stuff happening around here. So if there was ever a desire to test run a couple of things or to have something like that focused around here, we can definitely be in communication about that.
Amazing. I love working with youth. I volunteer with a local youth group here, and their curiosity and their way of viewing the world is so refreshing compared to me and all my old jaded friends. So I love working with teens.
A friend of mine is a teacher in a high school, and he was sending me a conversation that he had with a grade 11 student who was who follows Extinction Rebellion, and sees and hears a lot of the communication that comes from that group, and mostly though the conversation stemmed from something that came out last week when climate scientists were chaining themselves to banks, and really, there were articles of 1,000 climate scientists were getting arrested over the course of one weekend for sounding the alarm, what's happening to the planet. And this student approached a friend of mine and just kind of was saying, what are we doing all of this for? Why am I trying to get these grades? What's the point of going to college or university when we're hearing all of what's happening to the planet? Like, what is our future? Why are we striving for that, which seems unattainable, when we really should be fighting for the earth? And he wasn't overly stressed about it. But he and I had a conversation about it, and it seems like youth out there are feeling the weight. A lot of us are. Do either of you have any thoughts? I know this doesn't pertain too much to what we were just talking about, but it kind of does. Any thought about connecting with youth, or conversations or topics or things that we can bring up with them to give them some hope?
Yeah, I think, as you said, like Gen Z in particular is just so aware of all of this and really has the weight of their world on their shoulders. But a lot of the youth who were involved in a lot of climate protests a few years back in the pre-pandemic world were like so incredibly inspiring and so driven, and just viewed this all as something that we can do. And I think that message of hope is something that we really need to take to heart, and also continue, like, take that to heart and believe in it ourselves and act upon it, because viewing this as apocalyptic or too far gone is just not going to get us anywhere, and we do need to take action. So in my conversations with youth, I always try and come up with ways for people to get involved so that people feel less hopeless in this situation, and try to continue to foster that innate sense of curiosity in the world around us. I think that's incredibly important. And looking, getting to know a particular park or area of your city and all of the plants and animals that call it home is such a wonderful way to connect to the world and to foster that appreciation.
Thank you for that. Maybe one of my last questions has to do not so much with the naturalist community per se, but people's own workspaces and their organizations. How can folks communicate with their workplace, or show the public that they care, that they are inclusive, that they are caring for anybody? Are there obvious things that a website should have, or a great first step? Do you have any advice for anyone who maybe owns a business or is in this chat tonight, who can go to their employer or their CEO or HR rep and talk to them a little bit more about their own organization becoming inclusive?
I can speak to that. I actually work for an organization that does have a whole department dedicated to equity and inclusion. So we do monthly workshops. So each month we have a different theme, and then we extend that training to all the staff by providing different modules, whether that be the 519 training on pronouns, or this month we did one from Goodfoot, which is an organization dedicated to the employment of the neurodiverse community. So there's I think like when I speak in regards to sustainability within the restaurant industry, I say that an important part of sustainability is also social justice, right? Like that we are amplifying these voices. So I would say asking for different training modules, whether that be a small poster from the 519 explaining to people how to ask their pronouns, whether it be a link in your email bio saying, why are my pronouns here? Or having a land acknowledgement on your email sign off where it goes to nativelands.ca. There's lots of opportunities for inclusion. And I think that businesses can just follow suit. Like so many organizations are already doing this. And there's so many resources and different organizations that want to work with people, right? I'm trying to think of some other people we've done. We did training with the White Ribbon Society, which is an organization trying to dismantle the man box and discuss gender-based violence. Yeah, there's just so many opportunities, and all of these organizations are, and like this can even happen in naturalist clubs. I know the TOC and OFO both did an anti-racism training. Yeah, there's lots of people, and make sure that when you are accessing these things that they're including queer, differently abled people, people of color, and that you're not just centering like more white voices and things like that. Like make sure there's a good array of lived experiences there.
That's great. Yeah, I know that I hear when chatting with friends that, you know, my work's going through EDI training right now, but it really just seems like they're checking a box. You know, it doesn't really seem like, or there is a wonderful member of the Black community providing some training, but then afterward, you know, or in the weeks or months after, there's not much follow up, and it just kind of, you know, seems like it's just like, oh well, we did that, so therefore it's over. It really is an ongoing process, and something that, like you said, there's training and there's modules, there's things that you're able to kind of come back to.
And I know a huge training that we're like always going through is like learning our own biases that we bring to all of our experiences and decision-making processes, right? And this is something that like we do on a daily basis. We like re-identify biases. We have to ask ourselves like what is informing our decisions and things like that. But I also think beyond just like work, like having conversations like this with the person you're birding next to. I know I've had wonderful conversations with members of the birding community, even regarding pronouns, like just like feeling overwhelmed or unsure of like how to ask somebody their pronouns, how to discuss it. Finding people that you can talk to about it is great. And yeah, just talking to other people about like anything, you know, like you'll learn so much.
Rachel in the chat says the novel Saving Us, a climate scientist's case for hope and healing in a divided world. Yeah, I saw Catherine Hayhoe speak at an event a couple years ago or last year, and she was incredible. Thank you. Yeah, that's and hopefully Michael's writing that one down too as a resource. Michael Rowland is going to be creating an article, a recap of tonight, and you could almost do a whole page, Michael, on just resources that folks could be looking into after all of this. This is great.
And we can always send more your way.
Yeah,
well,
honestly, if you ask me for resources on a topic, I usually can send you about 30.
Well, like
I live that.
in hearing that the Feminist Bird Club and the TOC have some overlap, you know, I really do think that there could be something that or a conversation that could be had about how the Naturalist Club could be, you know, ensuring that that our walks are as inclusive as possible, but even a potential for a future walk hosted by the Feminist Bird Club. Something we've got opportunity to do that, so we should for sure chat more about that after the fact.
Amazing.
Yeah. Any closing comments from either of you before we wrap up for the evening? Anything left unsaid or final reminders What do you
No,
got?
I'm just thankful to everyone for inviting us tonight so we could talk about our club and get to know another club. This has been a really great opportunity. And I think what Jessica said about making all of the diversity and inclusion a part of your daily life rather than a one-day training or reading a book is so important. As we're all learning to, identify birds for our entire lives and other things out in nature, we're all always also trying to better ourselves and better support the communities around us.
Yay. I agree. I can't say it better than Elisabeth. Elisabeth says, I'm like, exactly that.
Okay, then the very last question: where are you going birding next?
You go. You have.
I'm in Hamilton, and I just recently relocated here, so I am learning some hot spots. But I am going to try Edge Lake Park because I have high hopes.
And I think tomorrow I'll be at High Park after work. But then looking forward, I've got a lot of birding trips planned this spring that I'm very excited about. Point Pelee with Jessica.
You can catch Elisabeth and I at the tip of Point Pelee. Spot us with the scope covered in Feminist Bird Club patches.
See you at dawn. And I'm excited to go up to the Bruce Peninsula a couple of times this spring and summer as well. It's hard to be everywhere at once, and wherever you're going, you're gonna miss out on something else. So you can also see us, I guess, Wednesday at Tommy Thompson Park for the Woodcock Walk with the Feminist Bird Club, if anyone wants to venture out to Toronto for that. We'd love to have you.
That's so cool. Well, thanks for the invite, but thanks so much for being here tonight and letting us know about the Feminist Bird Club and all about the great work you're doing out there. On behalf of the Hamilton National Club and the Bird Study Group, thank you both so much.
Thank you.
Our pleasure.
And to everyone who's still here, and some folks have been saying thanks in the chat throughout. Some hand clap emojis. So and it looks like someone's emailing you. Rachel Irwin is emailing you.
I got it.
Great. So thanks everyone for joining us tonight. We'll either see you at the hybrid event or at the to be determined birder meetup in May. But stay healthy, stay safe out there, and stay birdie. Good night, everyone. And thanks again, Jessica and Elisabeth.
Night.